Hello everyone, and welcome to the CoROM Podcast. This is where academic medicine meets remote, austere, and resource-limited areas.
Hello everybody, it's Tim Cranton from the College of Remote and Offshore Medicine. And today I have one of my first year students, that's first year on our BSc in Remote Paramedic Practice, Ming Ng. Ming, I'm sorry for pronouncing your name wrong. Please tell me I got it right.
You did, for the most part.
For the most part. I know I'm already to blame for getting your name wrong on certificates, but we did get it right eventually. And talking of certificates, obviously you guys most recently got your ITLS, your Advanced Cardiac Life Support and Pediatric Advanced Life Support on Module 104 of Remote Paramedic Practice in Malta. How do you feel about getting those certificates?
I'm very excited about them. Honestly, I wasn't expecting to get all of them all at once, even though, of course, the schedule said that we would. And I was quite nervous about them because this is definitely something very new for me.
I mean, it wasn't without a considerable amount of effort, obviously, on your part. And we did a little bit of retesting to make sure that everybody understood everything. But yeah, it was quite a busy period for you. So obviously the last 3 weeks in Malta, how did you find it?
There are so many thoughts I have about the last 3 weeks. If I could try to use 3 keywords to guide myself, one of them would be empowerment. That is one of the first things that comes to mind. Not only in the information that we learned, but also that our instructors and mentors were constantly tweaking and pushing us to improve our practice. So there were many students on the course who had many incredible and varied experiences, but that didn't stop anyone from sort of trying to enhance what they were already doing, to optimize what they were doing. There was, of course, a lot of encouragement from the instructors. There was a lot of sharing of skills, of tips, little tricks from real life experience. And I think something else that was really empowering was how instructors and students alike were modeling a lot of good practices. For example, something very critical that, in fact, I have to thank you. I have to thank you for this, Tim. When you modeled debriefing and how we analyze and how we evaluate, and not only looking at things from a critical point of view, but things that actually worked. How can we take all the good learning points and carry them forward? Other things I'm thinking about in terms of empowerment was the fact that we were challenged, whether in the environment, for example, in the field exercise, where we had a challenging environment. There was dust everywhere, sand, rocks. The ground was not necessarily stable.
I just remember you trying to remove the dirt and dust off the mannequin's arm that you were trying to cannulate, and it just seemed to be getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
It did. Yes, and one of those things where sort of being actually in an environment and practicing for real.
Right.
That is empowering as well, because you realize that, well, on the one hand, yes, the algorithms or the practice that we have will carry us through, but also it's a safe space to make mistakes and realize that, okay, so these are the things, this is how I react under stress. This is something that I'm not careful enough about. For example, dropping the top of my cannula onto the ground and suddenly I don't have a piece of sterile kit. Things like that one would never otherwise think of, and then coming out from that, reflecting on it and going, now I actually have not only at least a baseline for building up my skills, but also I know the things that I need to consider to move forward.
In terms of kind of feeling empowered and being challenged, who are you as a person? Who is Ming? Just tell me quickly, or tell our listeners, kind of who you are and where you come from before we go off on a tangent.
So, as far as medical experience is concerned, I am a wilderness EMT. I had my first education on that front in the US. I am an instructor for the National Outdoor Leadership School. I teach wilderness first responders and first aid courses, and have had some experience working at refugee camps. So as far as medical matters are concerned, that's where I come from. But I have other lives as well, where I work in the international sports world, primarily with the Olympics and Paralympic Games, or the Youth Olympic Games. And so those are some primary things that I do in my life, and that somehow the way life is weird and wonderful has somehow led me to discovering CoROM and wanting to learn and enhance my skills.
So you originate from Singapore, but you're in Norway. So how on earth did you end up in Norway?
Oh, goodness. That one's actually quite easy. I worked in Norway, in Lillehammer, for the 2016 Youth Olympic Games. And during my days off, I would go to the mountains to go hiking. And I thought, well, the mountains are quite wonderful here. I love the sense of humor in Norway. I think I might want to stay.
Fair. I can't argue with that. Having spent some time in Norway, it is a stunning and beautiful country. We actually run one of our austere emergency care courses in Horten. I don't think that's too far from you, is it? It's close to Oslo anyway. But I spent some time hiking there myself, and definitely a positive experience. I'm hoping to go back there again soon. But a bit of a contrast coming from Norway to Malta, a little bit warmer in Malta.
Oh, definitely, a touch warmer.
Thankfully, it wasn't too hot though the other week. It gets very warm in the summer.
Yes, we were very fortunate, and in fact, we had some cooler days as well. So I count my lucky stars.
But as you kind of intimated on earlier on, we were trying to simulate real life experiences. Did you find that the training related to was experiential?
Yes, I did. Particularly the field exercises. You spoke about the mannequin, and there was not only the mannequin. We did actually have live patients, and I also recall on the RPP101 we had live patients who were not communicating with us in English, not all the time at least, and so either because of the stress of the condition that they were experiencing, and so they were relying on sort of reverting to native language, that really puts several more layers onto the reality of the experience that we had for the field exercises. And I mean, outside of the field exercises, this time on RPP 104, there was also the extrication exercise, combining extrication plus the care of a patient who was in the car. That was also incredible to see. So it's very easy to talk about it. Well, it's not easy to talk about it because you taught an entire day of extrication. But when you taught the first day of the of that class, I thought in my head, oh yes, that makes plenty of sense. But when we were in the practice itself, it completely transformed the experience, and it transformed my understanding of it. And it's something that you mentioned to us at some point. You said that this course, at least since this is the first year, it's the beginning, and it's a window into this whole plethora of skills and experiences that have to be practiced often and intentionally. Definitely. And this is just the beginning. And not only do we have this beginning, we also have this beginning, but within the context of actually applying the skills in a more real setting, if one can call it that.
Yeah, you turned out to be quite a dab hand with a reciprocating saw.
I don't really think so. Thank goodness you were standing there, making sure I wasn't going to accidentally murder someone with the saw.
It was the look of enthusiasm on your face when you realised that somebody else had the saw, so you began the post on the opposite side with the hacksaw.
Oh yes, I think I really did have fun on that one.
But then again, what it does is it demonstrates, with very simple tools, you can actually affect quite a lot when it comes to extrication and rescue. And that's kind of the idea behind, that exercise. But, again, we're trying to put you in as real a life scenario or place as we possibly can, so that you take those learnings away and then can apply them the next time it comes round. But again, it was only 2 days of training. there's definitely more to it than that. And hopefully we'll be doing a little bit more when you go through year 2 and year 3 as well. So we'll see how that goes. I need to speak to Eric, because I know that exercise goes down quite well. And it's not just cutting vehicles. You guys actually did rescue as well on the second day. So you actually did 2, if I recall.
Yes, the exercise was split into 2, and there was the final extrication of the patient at the end. But we did swap out our roles so that everyone got to experience both the medical and the non-medical side of an extrication.
Did you find that you were there kind of working as an individual, or did you feel that you were part of a team?
Oh, I definitely felt a part of the team. And actually, funny that you mentioned that, because on the first course I told you that I felt a lot more comfortable working on my own because less moving parts. And this time around, it swung around completely for me. It made it so much easier to work together as a team this time and learn from each other that way. But I definitely felt a part of the team, and there were moments on the course where I had expressed to my colleagues and fellow classmates that I was not terribly comfortable with the leadership position, and what they did was, on several occasions, very intentionally say to me, "Ming, this time you're going into this position because when better than to try out and learn from an actual experience when you can get good feedback that will help you improve and do better for your future patients." So that was something that I really appreciated.
I mean, certainly for myself, working in remote healthcare, I can definitely say there's no way I could do all of this on my own. I have to enlist the help of other people in order for me to be effective and be able to do what I'm able to do. So the closer a relationship you have with your teammates, with your crewmates, it's going to make a difference when it comes to the level of patient care that you're able to deliver and afford to your patients. So obviously before you came to Malta, you had to do a fair amount of study online. How did you find the online study? Because obviously very different than being in a classroom and death by PowerPoint.
Yes. So I have several thoughts on online elements and especially individual learning. There are some people I know who absolutely thrive on this format, and I genuinely appreciate having an instructor or a mentor to help to contextualize things, because it's very easy to fall down a rabbit hole by yourself. That said, for every single chapter, I think CoROM provided multiple ways of entry into the topic. First, there was a textbook. There were the PowerPoint slides. There was often a presentation from CoROM itself or examples of resources that we could look at to help us look at the same topic from slightly different angles, or hearing different voices explain the same topic. So I thought that was very helpful. But definitely there's a lot of reading to be done. And it's actually something that I wrote in my own reflections, that as I look forward to the next year, I'm going to look at it in a longer term. I'm going to try to spread out my learning over a much longer time, so that I can start referring back, trying to link backwards and forwards between topics and materials. And also, my intention was to then go back to year 1 material. And I remember that on one of the year 1 seminars, in fact, that's another thing that we had, that you hosted seminars with us to help to basically contextualize some of the material. And I believe there was someone who was already done with year 1, but who came back to listen in on the seminar, which was great, because that was a live example of of course, it's possible to go back and help to solidify the basics and the principles. It seems so obvious, but at the same time, once you see it done in front of you, it's often this great aha moment.
How did you find balancing kind of the home life with your online study? Was that a challenge? Was it easy? How did you find that?
That was definitely challenging. Very frankly, I had a lot of difficulty with that, because I would optimistically imagine that I would be able to study at the same time as certain projects that I would be on, but then end up not really being able to to study at the same time. But what we did have then was you very kindly made yourself available to speak about where we were in our progress, and you gave me advice on what I should start focusing on to set me up for success when I came for the RPP 104. So that's something that I really appreciate. We spoke about this briefly, but it's something that I've always felt very supported by the college in terms of trying to negotiate making life work together with studies and also personal fears as I was coming into the course.
I think it's certainly one of the major worries of anyone who wants to join a course like the Remote Paramedic BSc is how am I going to balance my home life, my work life with study. Is there anything you've kind of learned that you could pass on to other people that might be thinking of doing the same thing?
Oh, goodness. I'm probably the last person to be giving any kind of advice on that.
You've obviously managed it, so otherwise you wouldn't be here now.
No, that's true. Goodness. One thing that I actually took from you was to constantly be listening to things like podcasts or in my free time, sort of listening in on things. And then when I had a moment all to myself to come back to that again and already having that initial base of having listened to it and then coming back to it again and now making clearer notes on that sort of helped to enhance the learning process for me. Another thing that I had was trying to utilize actually drawing out my own notes, trying to summarize things for myself, because there was a lot of material and trying to whittle it down somehow. That helped.
For those of you out there, for those people that don't know Ming is a great illustrator. So Ming, you just intimated there that you don't necessarily write things down as draw them, and having, as well as your classmates, having seen your notes and your diagrams, they're great. So any of you guys out there, if you need an illustrator, you want somebody who's able to put words into pictures, Ming is your person. There you go, Ming. I've just dropped a little advertising there for you.
Thank you very much.
But no, in saying that, in all joking aside, it's really important to be able to, take notes, to write things down in such a way that you understand them. And if you're able to do that, it will make a significant difference in your own personal learning. Obviously, that's your particular style and way of doing it. And it works for you and it works really well. So if somebody else was maybe thinking of doing the same, they could take a lesson or two from yourself, Ming.
Well, I know that Bobby had advice, especially for things like medicine, where it feels a little harder to draw medicine. Things like, what do you call this? Little cards where...
You did the junctional bandage, the inguinal junctional bandage.
That's right.
And the stages of application, if I recall. You drew 3 stages of application.
Yeah, that was actually really fun. I did it once for the RPP 101, and then at the RPP 104, when you showed it to us again, because I was seeing it a second time, it enabled me to refine what I had drawn earlier. Because now I knew what I was looking at and what I was looking for.
When you were in the classroom, were you guys kind of sharing your ideas and thoughts?
Oh, definitely. Again, quite a number of the students on course had a lot of experience in different areas. I believe one was a paramedic, and another had field experience of a different nature as well. And so they gave tips on this is how it works for me and try it out. So to see if that's going to help you achieve the outcome that we want. So these are the principles, but this is what I do. Will this work for you as well? Things like how to hold the laryngoscope, for example, or things like how they set up before a cannulation, things like how they hold on to the cannula, or where they put the cap so that they don't lose it like I did.
Well, Barry had a spare in his CoROM fanny pack bum bag, so that was good timing.
That was amazing.
But again, because he'd been through that experience himself, the same as you, then he was able to plan ahead. And of course, right place, right time, and he was able to fix it for you, for your patient. But again, that's where teamwork comes in. When you've worked with, a partner or someone for a significant period of time, you kind of get to know each other, and processes, and you're able to work together as a team. So, you're also looking out for each other as well. And you guys you all demonstrated that actually quite well. And coming together as a team is definitely something that that you learn, but you need to learn. Like I said, I can't do my job without other people that I train. So, having done your online training, do you think you were prepared for the classroom training?
It definitely helped me a lot. So RPP104 is much, much more in terms of the preparation work compared with the 101. And I thought about this as I was reflecting, that as I entered 104, I had sort of gone backwards a few steps in terms of confidence as well. But then realizing that, in fact, the work that was done beforehand did set me up well for success on the course. That was quite a booster. So yes, it did. I did feel that the preparation, the online studies did help to set me up for success on the course itself.
So for again, those of you guys out there, the first year of of our BSc Remote Paramedic program actually involves 5 modules. We've got 101, 102, 103, 104, and 105. So 101 is the basic EMT level, and that includes a period of online study, normally around 3-4 months. And then you come in and do 6 days in class in Malta. And then you've got 2 further modules, 102 and 103, which is again a period of online study. And then 104 is online study plus 3 weeks in the classroom. So essentially the first week is trauma week, the second week is medical week, and the third week is clinical week, with a culmination exercise that goes into austere emergency care and prolonged field care. And then once you qualify with your trauma, your advanced cardiac life support, and your pediatric advanced life support certificates, you are then able to go on to a 105, which is our clinical practicum. And we normally have that in Tanzania. So that's 375 clinical hours that we need you to complete. That essentially goes over everything you will have learned through the other 4 modules. And then at the end of that, there's a summation, which you'll have in a clinical workbook, which gets filled out. And all of the skills are signed off by your supervising physicians at the hospital. And then we get you to write a reflective practice about your learning as well. Hopefully, once you've done all that, you can then move on to year 2, and that's where you are. So hopefully, we're going to get you to Tanzania. Can't remember when. You're going to have to remind me.
The end of the year. That's the hope. November-ish.
Yeah, you did say mid-November to mid-January. So we need to progress your application. So I'm actually going to be talking to our education team towards the end of the week. And I'm going to be looking to take on the responsibility of getting you guys through your clinical practicums, which actually should be easier for you guys because you've got a single point of contact that you can come to for any of your queries, and that hopefully frees up a little bit of work from our admin team, who I know are pretty busy right now. What with all of the other courses that CoROM is pretty busy with. So yeah, we'll be coordinating that and getting your applications in so we can get you organised and get you there. And I'm absolutely positive you'll have a great time there. So what are you doing right now then? What's happened post course other than a little bit of decompression?
It's back to work for me, but also back to life. The sweet and fun things in life are that I'm finally able to grow my vegetables again, and meet my cat, who has basically almost disowned me.
Oh dear.
But so those are the nice things in life, and come back to my partner and told him I'm still alive, I'm still here. But otherwise, it's back to work.
Are you planning any treks up into the mountains or any wilderness courses?
Oh, yes. I am looking forward to going back to the mountains. We haven't really solidified it yet, but there's a really lovely area. It's one of the national parks in Norway that we are both hoping to go back to at some point this year. Not 100% sure if that's going to be the place, or if we'll go back to Jotunheimen, or if we'll go north instead. But definitely adventures planned.
So what's the end game then, Ming? Where do you imagine yourself to be once you've completed your BSc?
I would like to go back to working at the refugee camps again. Now being better equipped. One of the reasons why I actually looked for a course was because the last time I was there, I felt, yes, I'm able to help to a certain degree, but I am also completely out of my depths in many ways. And I need to learn more if I want to do more for in service. So that was one idea. Another one was hoping to attach myself as a medic to maybe research expeditions, or to expeditions as just normal expeditions as well. Being out in the wilderness would be great.
So do you imagine yourself in Antarctica or Africa?
Oh goodness, anywhere really. But I am at heart a mountains person, even though I have grown up next to the sea. So if there are opportunities in the mountains, I would be absolutely thrilled. But then again, I think there is great beauty in the entire world, and there's not enough life to adventure and experience everything. So whatever opportunity arises, I'd be excited for.
Tips and tricks you mentioned earlier on. What did you take away from your 104? What was one of the? Can you give me any tips and tricks or anything that you could maybe pass on to anyone that's listening?
Oh no, Tim. Let me think.
Having spares, so the little plastic bungs for your cannula in your bum bag.
Exactly. That is one critical. I actually have one right now in my CoROM bum bag. I definitely learned my lesson there. Goodness.
Preparation and planning.
Yes, exactly. Preparation and planning prevents poor performance, as you said on several occasions. But if I can actually just slide it slightly away from tips and tricks, though, you reminded me about intentionality. There's something that you mentioned multiple times, to be thinking medics, yeah, rather than people who are just algorithm robots, so to speak. That yes, we have our checklist, and it's important to have our checklist with us, but understanding the whys of the components and how they pertain to the stages of the checklist, I thought that was something really, really enlightening, and something that helped me to remember why I was doing what I was doing, and the things that I did need to do. That's something that sort of been sitting at the top of my head these few days as I think back onto the course.
As clinicians, it's very important that we are able to understand the why rather than just to do. There are arguably plenty of cookbook courses where you're literally shown how to do a skill, and then when you ask why, you're just told because that's what you need to do. But that doesn't give you any explanation. And when things happen outside of the norm, as they inevitably do, there's going to come a time where you're going to have to work out what's happened or what's going wrong and then come up with a fix. And that answer may not be on your checklist, in which case you're going to need to understand what's going on, why a patient is behaving, in a certain way. All of a sudden their SATs have dropped and their blood pressure's dropped, and you're wondering why, when every intervention you have done up to now is supposedly been correct. So it's definitely something you need to know. We call you MacGyver medics. Again, you probably remember us saying that, making a nuclear reactor out of an orange and a paperclip.
Yes, indeed. Actually, now that I've given myself a little time to think, I remember something that Stuart said, because I had been struggling, and this is something I spoke with you about. I've been struggling with organizing my documentation in a way that if I handed it over, it would make sense to the other person, and in a way that would flow naturally as I'm reading it back. And what Stuart said was that for injuries, so ATMIST, if one were to use the ATMIST rather than a different form of reporting, the I of the ATMIST referring to injuries, he said you could really easily just refer over to the other half of your sheet where you've written C, A, B, C, D, E, and read it back as you would almost a story. And I really thought that made it very clear for me. It made a lot of sense, sort of reading for my interventions or the things that I was looking out for. Have I found something that I needed to intervene in? And what was that intervention? So in fact, having it more as a story, I think you end up being heard a lot better than if you were robotically just repeating signs back to whoever you were handing over to. That was something that really, really helped me towards the end of the course.
I think it's important as well that we recognize or are familiar with the people that we're handing over to already. So in other words, the first time that you hand a patient over, it shouldn't really be the first time you've had a conversation with the person that's come to get that patient. And it's making a point of contacting the topside doctor or whatever the rescue or ambulance service is, and knowing and understanding what their particular expectations are. Like you said, if you can use C, A, B, C, D, E, you can use ATMIS. There's various other, systems or ways of doing the same thing. It's just using one that somebody understands and is recognized. And whilst one system may be, very familiar with ATMIS, like the military or for the UN or something similar, another system, a civilian system, let's say in South America, maybe Mexico, isn't. So for you need to be familiar with whatever system they use. And I think, like I said to you guys, you're going to have everything that you've learned on your course, but there is still an expectation that when you get to your first job or, get to wherever it is you're going to go on your travels, you'll take time to go through operating procedures, you'll go through protocols, you'll go through guidelines that are going to be specific to the place that you're going to. It's not a question of just, doing everything you've learned in the classroom. There are going to be other things that you will have to learn outside of the classroom. And like you said earlier, that kind of ties into, this is just the beginning. There's a lot more learning to be done after this. I don't know how you feel about that.
I'm excited about that. In fact, I think this is worth mentioning. Every single instructor on that course was in the middle of learning as well. And I don't mean this in the sense of they were. I know that, Tim, you mentioned that as you're teaching, you're also learning, but from the experiences of the people around you. But what I was thinking more of was that every single instructor there was also at the same time upgrading their skills and taking different courses to enhance what they already know. And that for me is something really exciting. And I really, really appreciate that our instructors are leading by example on that front.
I think that's also our expectation, and most certainly of the college, is that all of us that are faculty members will lead by example. There's nothing I would expect you guys to do that I wouldn't do myself, and that's what we would expect. I'm doing a master's in global health myself. I've actually been writing already today, despite the fact I'm at work. But if I've got 5 minutes, I've got a bit of time and I can squeeze that in, I will do it. And I think that kind of goes back to you guys doing your online study. It can be quite daunting at first, and maybe not knowing where to start. But with a little bit of foresight, with a little bit of planning, a little bit of orientation and adjustment of your home life and your work life balance, it's most certainly possible. And for myself, I'm a late starter in terms of education. So, I'm in my mid 50s, and I'm only just doing a master's now. But like I would say to anybody, it's never too late to learn, and there is so much out there to be able to learn. And again, there's stuff to learn from you guys as well, and you're at the beginning. You also mentioned there was a lot of experience in the class as well, and I think that makes a difference. It's surprising what you get from your classmates. How do you feel about that?
very, very, very humbled and appreciative, because everyone was. I know that it's a tone that was also created by how you and other instructors framed the course, but everyone was actively chipping in and invested in each other's learning. So it created this very positive environment where we were able to build on each other's knowledge and help each other out, and ask questions and challenge each other. That was something I was very grateful for. I shouldn't be too surprised but sometimes I am surprised seeing people with higher levels of training coming and taking what to me seems a little lower than their current level of practice training. But I shouldn't be surprised by that. And when I hear from them and when I hear what their perspective is and how they're learning, it also sort of helps me keep an eye to the future, that yes, actually, that's something that I could be doing in the future as well, to keep my basics very solid.
You can never practice the basics enough. I'm a firm advocate of getting the basics right before you run away and you try and do all the Gucci stuff.
Yes.
It's the basics that count, and you need to be good at. We don't train until we get it right. We train until we cannot get it wrong. Is the is the expression I like to use. So tell me, what have you enjoyed the most about your course so far? Bearing in mind you've still got another couple of years to go yet.
Goodness, only one thing.
Okay, you can have more than one.
I would say really the humanity in the course, you know, in all the different aspects, that firstly, it's not forgotten out of the instruction. For example, when you taught about, hey, the basics of, as you said, basics should never be forgotten, the basics of patient interaction. Don't only read the vital signs or the ECG. Ask the patient, how do you feel? How are you today? Because, of course, a patient will offer great insight into how we can best serve them or best assist them in their care, but also the entire human aspect of interactions, of teamwork, of not losing sight of communication, which are all critical to good care. I think there is that.
Is there anything you would say to anyone out there who's maybe thinking of enrolling on our BSc program? Any advice you think you could offer?
I would say that the moment you choose to enroll on the course, look ahead at the entire. For example, if you're starting with the 101, look ahead at the entire 101 course and try to spread out your learning. Don't try to do everything all at once. Take the time, because it will really, really set you up for success. And when you come into the classroom, it will give you a really good, solid foundation for learning. And I think it's okay to be on days to be disappointed and frustrated, perhaps with one's own performance, but not to be discouraged. I think that's very important, and it's something that I learned very much from being on this course. It's hard to be discouraged when you're being so uplifted by everyone around you is one thing, but also I guess that's another skill that we are learning on the course as well.
Yeah, it's definitely about having that positive mental attitude. If you've got the positive attitude, that you can achieve anything. There's so many things you can achieve, and I'm an advocate of that, because again, you know, later on in my career, I've put things off, or I've put things to one side because I didn't have time or whatever, and I'm so glad I've made the commitment into, you know, to higher and further education, and arguably now kind of reaping the benefits of it. So it's the never stop learning, positive attitude, And you never know unless you try. Talking of trying, one of the things I have recommended to people, if there's anyone out there who's not sure about online learning, you can always do our remote EMT program, which is actually a standalone. It's also one of our modules, 101. So it's the first module that the students do, and it's a good foundation. And it gives you a good idea of what to expect when it comes to doing all of the other online modules. So you get a taster. You can do it as a standalone. You can do it as a taster. You can come and do a week with us in Malta and kind of see what we're all about. And if that sparks your interest, then you can always get back in touch with us, and we can take it to that next step if that's what you really want to do. But one thing I'm going to say, Ming, is thank you very much for your time this afternoon. It's really appreciated, and thank you for giving us your insight on your experience so far with the first year of the Remote Paramedic Practice degree. And obviously looking forward to seeing what you can do on year 2.
Thank you very much for having me, Tim.
This has been a presentation from the College of Remote and Offshore Medicine Foundation. If you would like to earn CPD credit for this podcast, you can join the Council of Members. Being a member of the college gives you free CPD credits, free access to the virtual field guide, and discounts on our e-learning courses. You can join the team on the college website, which is CoROM, CoROM, CoROM.org.